haunted by an unknown man. A series of events started to happen when I was very young, around 8 or 9. There's a chance the series were not connected. My feeling is it's all connected, to one disturbed man. The first event was the phone started ringing almost every night between 2 and 3 a.m. Being a light sleeper, it woke me up constantly. My parents didn't ever appear to be bothered, probably because they were both drunk almost every night and passed out. Even when I did complain, they just respond by saying it was probably the wrong number, or something along those lines. It gave me a bad feeling every night, hearing that loud, rattling landline phone ringing in the kitchen. One night, out of curiosity and frustration, when that phone rang, I decided to answer it. I heard some distant music in the background and heavy breathing. Now being older, I can say it sounded like someone was sitting in a bar. Eventually, my parents changed the number. A few months after my parents changed the number, I was awakened again, but by a different sound. There's something creepy about hearing noises at night in an isolated country house. Every little sound can be heard. Every sound lingers. You can feel it. So when I heard that car slowing down on the road in front of our house, it woke me with an unsettling feeling. I remember I could hear how the tires drove over the gravel in the driveway. My heart sank. I looked up at the wooden square clock in my bedroom. It was 2:17 a.m. For reasons I can't explain, I crawled out of my bed and walked out to the living room and glanced out the windows that hung above the driveway. I kept my distance from the window so he couldn't see me. I stared down at him through the sheer curtains. A man in a dark-coloured Buick Sentry sat in a car facing my house. I couldn't make out distinctive facial features. I could see he had light-coloured hair, with a bowl-cut style. If I had to guess, now I would say he was just in his early to mid-30s. He just sat there. He started up at my house in a trance. I don't even remember him moving. I waited to see what he was going to do. I was filled with fear. Around 15 minutes passed. He still just sat there. Then he very slowly backs up and drives away. He kept his eyes on the house as he drove away. So maybe wrong house, or he was drunk. Who knows? Then, I think he visited again. It was a Sunday evening, and I was playing in the front yard with my sibling. I still remember that dreaded feeling of returning to school the next day. A car pulls up, and it stops in front of the mailbox down the road. Our house was on a little hill with a back road in front. The mailbox was down on the road. We stopped playing and watched down in curiosity. We knew it was Sunday, and the mail doesn't come. Also, that's not the regular mailman's car. The man continued to sit there, staring up at us. At one point, he reached his arm out the window and acted like he put something in the mailbox. Then, drove about 50 yards up the road and stopped and sat. So my siblings told me to go check the mailbox. I don't know why they told me to, maybe because I was the youngest. I walked down the little hill and opened the mailbox, and nothing was in it. Suddenly I hear tires screeching and the car was flying towards me in reverse. I screamed and we all ran into the house. He drove off very fast. We told our parents and they thought we were confused and minimized the situation. That night while laying in bed it clicked in my head. That man was the same man that came that one night. It was the same car and I remember the same blonde hairstyle. An unsettling feeling sank in. About a year after that, one day in school, I heard teachers telling kids to avoid a dark-coloured Buick. They said a man was trying to kidnap kids at their mailbox after getting off the bus. I moved out of that town a few years later when my parents got divorced. Every once in a while he comes to my dreams, but I never heard anything about the man ever again. To this day, I wonder what would have happened to me had he actually grabbed me. Gravity. Love is a black hole. It can't be quantified, nor can it be understood. Yet it has a weight to it. A gravity of sorts. I was sent careening towards that vast expanse, unable to pull away from those twin lights suspended in her eyes. She held me transfixed. I felt my soul being dragged deeper. I was lost in the depths of those crystal clear ponds. Normally, This would be a wondrous thing. Not for me. I'm in my mid-30s, and still I haven't been on a date. I'm not much to look at, and I've never been particularly good with my words. My love life has been one set of disappointments to the next. Frankly, I'd come to accept my impending loneliness as a fact of life. That was before I met Sarah, however. She strolled into my life as casually as the spring breeze, yet she left my heart devastated in her wake. She didn't just reignite my passions, she made me believe once more. For the first time in my life, I found myself daring to think that I could be happy. Maybe, just maybe, it could be me. I met her at my favourite diner. She was a new hire, and one I entirely approved of. She approached my table and flashed that radiant smile. I was hopeless at first glance. Even then, I felt myself being pulled by her gravity. It was that fateful fall when I decided to put my plan into motion. I spent 2 blissful years enjoying her company in measured spurts from the shadows of anonymity. I'd come into the diner on those days. I was certain she would be present. I would try my best to be seated into her section. Often I'd succeed. It was becoming impossible to turn away from her irresistible pull. I found myself thinking of her, wanting her, needing her. Every day she wasn't mine was a step closer to the abyss. I felt myself coming undone at the seams. I was like a star imploding in itself. My life seemed to be slipping. I'm not a brave man, but the torture of not having her fueled my confidence. I couldn't go another day without her. The gravity pulled me back, smashing down to the surface. I was powerless to stop it. It washed over me like waves on the seashore. It was nearly closing time. It was now or never. If I refused the pull, then she would walk out that door. I wouldn't be able to live in a world without her. It was a crossroads and a decision was required. Without a second thought, I made my move. I loaded her unconscious form onto my boat, preparing to set sail with no specific destination in mind. As long as it was a place warm and far, and of course, somewhere they didn't ask too many questions. Sarah, please don't be too angry with me. After all, who can fight gravity? My stalker. My name's Dave. I'd had bad breakups before, and been through different kinds of relations, but this one would top my whole experience. I know this sounds boring at first, but it'll get a lot more interesting, I promise. I met Kim at this one friends get-together party thing. We got along really well. My dark, stupid humour matched hers, and that whole night we stuck together and exchanged phone numbers at the end of it all. It didn't take long for us to text one another, and from that, I knew I was destined to be with this amazing girl who matched my energy. Stupid, corny jokes, same taste in music and food. It was something that was just meant to be. We dated for 8 months, and going into the 9th, it started to get a little rocky. We agreed on most things, but for some stupid reason, we started butting heads. Every day it just felt like we were drifting, and by the 10th, we finally broke it off. I was in pieces from it. I could tell she was also. I ignored her calls for maybe a few weeks, and I just wanted to move on. I was mature enough to just try and get myself together. Eventually the calls stopped, and I sheltered myself under my apartment and focused on work. It was a tough one for me, and thankfully, I started to let go of Kim. One night I was at home making dinner. I just so happened to glance out the window, and there was Kim, across the street, standing with her hand over another. I looked and turned away, no matter how hard it was not to. This started to be a frequent occurrence, around the same time every night, and honestly, I wanted to run out there and just hug and hold her tightly, tell her how much I miss her, and wanted to give us another chance, but this was what was best for the both of us. One night when I returned home from the bar, I looked at the time and was hoping to catch Kim one of her stakeouts. I was a bit drunk and wanted to just pour my heart out. I waited and waited. Even as it rained, I still waited, but at that point, it started to get close to midnight. I decided to walk to her apartment, which was just a 15-minute distance from my place, which I didn't mind walking. During the walk, I planned out what I would say, rehearsed word for word, and was beginning to feel the joy of just seeing her again, holding her and smelling that strawberry smell in her hair. When I arrived at the apartment, I could see that her light was on, and I was in luck. I I felt so alive, and just felt right to be back with her because she was everything I've always wanted, and I knew she felt the same way as me. I stood at her door, a complete nervous wreck, fixing up my collar, still tipsy from my trip at the bar. Slicks my wet, rained-on hair, and I knocked. The loud heart pulse in my ears was louder than my nervous breathing. I knocked once more, and that's when her roommate, Cassidy, opened the door slowly. Hi, yeah, is Kim around? Cassidy closed the door and unlocked the chain, and opened it once more. Hasn't anyone told you? Oh my god, I'm sorry, Dave, but someone should have told you. Kim was in an accident a few weeks ago. She was hit by a car when riding her bike home from work. She died right then and there. I'm so sorry. Her eyes filled with tears, I stood in the hallway, shaken up. Broken all over again. I had no words or actions I could do to shake this grief of shock. And that's when it hit me. She started showing up outside my apartment right around the time she had the accident. At that moment, my grief turned to I don't know what. I don't know how to explain it. I always thought the expression blood turning cold was just a thing, but that's what really happened. It's been almost a year since this happened, and once in a while, I catch a glance outside my window, and at times it feels like she's still there, looking up at my window. But I can't bear to look down, because what if? What if she's still out there looking up at me? As much as I miss her and loved Kim, I just can't look out the window around that certain time of night. My stalker.